The center of the village is anchored by the historic Salt Building. We put a lot of design focus into the central plaza. This particular plaza is a very urban plaza. We have a stage. I think you'll see some very interesting programming and special events as we begin to really understand the potential of the plaza. We also are thematically referencing the idea of shipbuilding, and in fact, the large red ribs are derived very specifically from the cross-section of a ship.
The whole community is built around this tremendous public plaza that is fronted by shops and is also open to the water. The location of it itself is at the convergence of three major bike routes within the city. So that's the North-South Ontario Bikeway, the Central Valley Greenway, which runs east-west and connects Vancouver with a lot of the other neighboring municipalities, and then our Waterfront Bikeway, which really connects all of our downtown neighborhoods along the waterfront. The neighborhood has been developed around a future streetcar right-of-way, which we hope to build in the coming years. It has great access to bus transportation on 2nd Avenue and is, of course, bookended by two rapid transportation routes.
The decision was made to invent a new kind of urbanism for Vancouver, the low mid-rise typology, and in fact have that predominate all three of these neighborhoods as we roll out development over about a 20-year period. We see generally buildings not higher than the 15-16 story range, and this idea of then the balance of the density being contained into a street wall form. We see these buildings characterized by low mid-rise towers, predominantly at the ends of blocks to essentially frame or bookend each of these blocks, and then the in-between being lower mid-rise form. Yes, it's very tightly woven, but it's also very private.
The community is first and foremost a walkable community. A lot of the buildings themselves have been broken up into smaller components to provide public pathways that allow for what we call a high degree of permeability. This sidewalk slopes gently into this rain garden. So instead of water falling on the sidewalk going into a gutter, it's collected in this rain garden used by these plants. A valley street also allows us to have one central collection point in the middle of the street rather than two on either side. It also allows us not to have curbs on the other side of the street. So it's not only a more sustainable street, but it's also a very walkable street.
It's really a community for everyone. So we expect a wide demographic. It's a very accessible community. We expect it to be very vibrant, an eclectic mix of varying ownerships and tenure.
These buildings are sustainable down to their bones. There's two projects here that have what we call solar thermal collectors on top of them. So on the south side of the buildings, we have what's called horizontal shading devices. So that stops any unwanted sun coming in that comes in at a high angle at the summertime. We've actually calculated that the devices are not so long that they would block out any of the light we want to see in the wintertime. All the water that falls on the private realm here, which is what we call the buildings and all the lands associated with the buildings, actually gets funneled into underground tanks or cisterns, as we call them, and that gets used for irrigation when we don't get the rain. It also gets used in the toilets here in the buildings. The rooftops are also animated with raised beds that people can use for planting vegetables or flowers or any kind of gardening they want to do.
When we do compact urban living, as we see here with all three of these neighborhoods, we really do have to do a good job with the public amenities. And so we see a couple of parks that we have designed into the fabric of the Southeast Falls Creek community, starting with what we call Hinge Park.
One of the most prominent features here at Hinge Park is this constructed wetland. The purpose of this wetland is to actually collect all of the water that falls west of Manitoba Street here in the Olympic Village and clean it. So this is water that's falling on the sidewalks and the streets. It comes here, it goes through the plants and the twisty river that we've formed here, and the bacteria and plants actually cleanse the water before distributing it here into Falls Creek. It's a really unique solution that actually provides a great amount of habitat and clean water.
We added additional perimeter shoreline in exchange for some manipulation of the shoreline back at the heart or the inlet where we see the pedestrian bridge. We've set up the habitat island with 3 raptor perches, so we had a family of bald eagles here in Southeast Falls Creek. Because of Habitat Island and the cleansing through the urban wetland, we've seen herring come back. We think the visit by the gray whale in Falls Creek this summer was in fact encouraged to come back because of the availability of the herrings.
We have an energy center that is located at a sewer main that takes all of the sewage out of the city of Vancouver, and this sewage is actually quite warm. We harvest the heat out of that sewer. What it ends up giving us is for every 1 unit of energy we put in, we get about 3 units of energy out. And that provides low carbon heat throughout the entire neighborhood. And through this strategy, we've been able to enact about 65% reductions in greenhouse gases over what would typically be built in other developments. I think what will be important about Southeast Falls Creek is it's the first time that we got serious about low carbon district energy. I think that when we think about the challenges that are going to face us in the future is we're going to be operating in probably a carbon-constrained world, and we're going to have to look for new solutions. We really learned a lot about becoming an energy utility provider here in the city in Southeast Falls Creek, and I hope that we're going to take those learnings and move forward in a really ambitious manner.